In this video, we're going to start focusing on some of the interior details of the Keystone library, specifically looking at the structural columns, and wrapping them with a partition wall, so that way we get a nice finished appearance for the inside of our building. I'm going to go ahead and move to level 1. First, I want to figure out how tall do I need to make these walls. So I'm going to run a section view through my building. And I'm going to look at each level. So I'm going to right click when I get done placing the view. When this is highlighted, I can say go to view. Changing my level of detail to fine, that way I can see all the structural elements. I'm going to look at the first level and align dimension of from underneath to the top of the floor. We're about 17 feet and 8 or so inches, and so when you take a look at the height, we want to leave about 3 to 4 feet for our HVAC equipment. We'll probably shoot for about 14 feet for the height of our walls in this case. They go around the columns. For the second floor, I'll grab the bottom of this K-series joist, choose the top of level 2. We're about 13 feet, 8.5 inches. So we'll probably go about 12 feet on this one. We got a little bit more room because the K-series joists, the depth that they have, we're able to kind of work in some of that equipment and everything, but we'll go about 12 feet on that second level. Moving back to level 1, I'm going to go ahead and delete the section view since we just gained some information on it. And I'm going to now look at, where do I want to start? And I will start with the row B, and I'm going to pick out an interior column like this one right here to kind of focus on. So I'm going to move to the Architecture tab, choosing the Wall command, and I'm going to choose under the wall type, I'm going to choose an interior 3 1/8 inch partition wall. This is a fire-rated wall, which is why it has the 1 hour kind of designation. So I'm going to go ahead and say Edit Type. And with this, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate, and I'm going to call this to be the interior dash column wrap. And really all we need in this wall type, I'm going to edit the structure, is I'm going to keep the 1/2 inch gypsum wallboard for the one finish. I'm going to delete the second layer of gypsum wallboard. Keep the metal stud layer at 1 5/8, so we've got metal studs that we're going to fasten to the structural columns. And then we only need one side to have gypsum wallboard, so I'm going to delete these bottom 2 layers. So the white section here on the view from the floor plan view is the metal stud layer. The gray is the gypsum wallboard, and that's going to be what we end up seeing. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and say OK. My height, my base constraint is going to be at level 1. It's an unconnected height at 14 foot 2 inches, and I did 2 inches to kind of account for the height of the ceiling as well. So I'm going to go ahead and run the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw around the column, and I want to make sure when I draw this by right clicking and say cancel a couple times, all the arrows are pointing onto the outside, but also you'll be able to tell, as long as your level of detail is set to fine, you're going to be able to see the layers in that wall, and that first layer, that little thin layer, is going to be the gypsum wallboard. I'm going to go ahead and select the wall using the Align Modify tool. I'm going to go ahead and choose the edge of the column, and I'm going to choose the edge of the wall to align it, and I'm going to lock those in place. I'm going to go ahead and do this process for the other 3 sides. And then that way I have my column all the way wrapped tight, and when I look at my 3D view, that's what I'm going to see on the inside is the gypsum wallboard. Moving back to level 1, I'm now going to go ahead and take a look at, I'm going to highlight and drag and encompass all this. I'm going to use the filter tool to filter out the structural columns and say OK. And here, when you look at your type selector, before I went through and deselected that, you're going to see multiple categories were selected. So when I filter, I'm just going to have the walls, and you'll see now the type properties only shows the walls. I'm going to use the copy tool. Since this is selected, I know I'm going to copy these walls, and then I'm going to pick a point to which I'm going to go through and align to the next part. So I'm going to choose the very corner of the beam here, and when I go over here to the beam that I skipped on the left side, I'm going to go ahead and pick that same point so that way these walls will copy and be aligned to that point. Now I will get an error message because this wall right here is overlapping with our exterior. So I'm just going to go ahead and select it and delete, and the wall will clean itself up for the wall joins to connect to that exterior wall. I'm going to repeat this process down the row to the next 3 structural columns utilizing our beams here. So following the exact same process, choosing the copy, making sure to choose my point from which I want to copy from and to, and choosing those same points. So now, since these are still selected, I can choose copy. I can choose the point there. I don't have to go back to that original column. I can just keep using the last one that I just copied to. The last one I will need to clean up, and I will get an error message when I get to that point. And I just need to delete the wall that's overlapping. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all this row. Since I've got one row of this done, I'm going to copy that row down here to row A, and then I'll run the mirror tool to do rows C and D. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all the elements there that I want to pick. Multiple categories are selected. I'm going to filter out the structural columns. I'm going to say apply. And when I say OK, again, the interior column wrap is the only thing that gets applied. Now, before I go through and start copying, when I go to copy these down, the bottom walls are going to highlight and going to overlap. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to hold the Shift key and I'm going to select the bottom wall to deselect. So Control will add selections, Shift will deselect. And I'm just going to do that for all these columns. When I have this all ready, I can now copy. I'm going to choose the original point, and it can be another one of the columns as long as they align. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this one down to this point on the columns on row A. Now, no error message, and I have all those wrapped in place. So in order to continue to do that to the rest of level 1, I'm going to highlight the 2 rows now. Do my best to make sure that I make sure I encompass all the walls for the structural columns, but I don't want to grab this exterior wall here. So I'm going to go ahead and filter out the structural columns. Now it looks like I did miss these walls here. So let me try this one more time. Let me hit escape. Let's see if I can get this a little bit better. Okay. And again, holding Control, you can always grab the ones. It's a little tricky because we don't want to get that bottom exterior wall. So I'm just going to use Control and grab these other walls down the row. Alright, so now we have all of our walls selected. I'm going to now use the mirror command, but the draw axis option. So I'm going to go ahead and click. I'm going to go ahead and find the midpoint along the 72-foot exterior wall. I'm going to go ahead and find it'll be marked by a triangle midpoint symbol. I'm going to click and I'm going to draw this temporary line over to the other side. And then what will happen is all of our columns on column lines on the rows C and D will now have column wrap to it. Just to verify, I'm going to go back to the 3D view. There you'll see all of them are all set. We do need to go through and apply this to our second story, our second level. So I'm going to move to level 1 with level 2, we have columns only with on column lines 3, 4, and 5. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight these columns. So again, you got to be careful not to grab those exterior walls. So I'm going to come out to here, and I'm going to go ahead and filter out the structural columns. So here's the interior walls with the column wrap. All of them look selected correctly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use under the clipboard panel, I want to use copy to clipboard. Now I'm going to go ahead and choose under paste aligned to selected level. So I'm going to paste them to the next level. And the next level I want to go up to is level 2, and I'll say OK. Now it does say the highlighted walls overlap, so if I move to level 2, you're going to go through and notice that it's because of these walls right here on our column line 3. But while I've got all these selected, I do want to change the height over to 12 foot tall on the walls. Hit apply. Then along the column line 3, I'm going to clean up some of the wall joins here by deleting the overlapping wall with the column wrap. And now moving to our 3D view, you'll see all those structural columns are now wrapped, and we are ready to start putting in some interior walls to start sectioning off parts of our building for some various rooms and areas that we wish to designate.